Welcome to Your Radiant Spirit, a space for the conversations and colors that help you see yourself more clearly. I'm Heather Eck, an intuitive artist and guide, and I believe your soul speaks in the ways the mind can't always put into words, through color, energy, and the stories your body holds. This show is where we explore those messages. Through personal stories, deep conversations, and creative insight, we'll uncover what's been hidden, release what no longer serves, and begin to imagine what's possible when you live in full alignment with who you're meant to be. What you hear here is more than inspiration, it's an opening, a chance to feel the shift that could change everything. So take a deep breath, open your heart, and let's step into today's conversation. Hey, listeners, before we begin today's episode, I want to let you know that this conversation includes mentions of childhood trauma, abuse, and sexual assault. So while the themes we explore are ultimately about healing, resilience, and transformation, some of these stories shared may be activating or sensitive for listeners. So please take care of yourself as you listen, pause if you need to, come back when you're ready, and know that you're not alone. Enjoy the episode. Welcome back to Your Radiant Spirit. I'm so excited to have a special guest with me today. We share a name, Heather Ann Ferry. I'm so excited to meet you. Heather Ann's journey began in the heart of New York City as a Guinness World Record holding tap dancer, performing in musicals and choreographing for over a decade. But beyond the artistry, her path was shaped by one extraordinary mentor, Jimmy Slide, whose influence instilled not just technical mastery, but a deep understanding of rhythm, storytelling, and the power of presence. Inspired by his wisdom and the lessons learned from the stage, Heather Ann transitioned into transformational healing, becoming a private trauma coach who blends 8 ancient sciences with personal experience to help individuals overcome C-PTSD and generational childhood trauma. Through 15 years of private coaching, teaching in universities, disabled schools, and senior homes, Heather Ann uncovered a universal truth. Whether sitting across from a doctor, CEO, or construction worker, she was always speaking to their inner child. Healing the inner child is the key to unlocking intuition, creativity, and even financial prosperity. Her workshops, talks, and programs integrate medical meditations for brain clarity, resilience, and intuition, offering individuals and organizations practical tools to foster lasting transformation. With compassion and creativity, Heather Ann continues to light the path to healing and self discovery, carrying forward the legacy of Jimmy Slide, the power of one good man whose wisdom transcends generations. Heather Ann, thank you so much for being here today. It's such a pleasure to meet you.
Such an honor. And I mentioned Jimmy Slide several times, the tap legend. And I know as an artist, somebody he worked in Paris, he would have loved your paintings.
Oh,
He would have loved them.
oh, that made my day. Thank you for saying that. Oh, that's so nice. It sounds like you had a wonderful relationship with him.
Yeah, it was short lived, but was powerful. As you know, some of those spiritual, physical messengers in our lives that make
Mm-hmm.
such a huge impact that we don't even realize at that moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like 30 years later and I've gone through so much life, that warrior, so
Mm-hmm.
many trials and tribulations. And now I'm like, oh wow, I was gifted that one beautiful divine masculine soul,
Wow.
that
Yeah.
not only impacted my art as you're an artist, but really cared about me as a human being, which is not as common, unfortunately, because of the inner child work we all have to do.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much. So I would love for you to give our listeners just an overview of your life and how you got to the work that you're doing today.
Sure. Yeah. So I was born in the blue collar of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in the United States. If you've never been there, it's the land of Mr. Rogers. And my parents were high school sweethearts. They met on stage doing a play. They fell in love and they married young with a lot of generational traumas.
Mm.
And this was back in the day where we weren't talking about this stuff. We weren't really engaged in mental health. And, as life happens, my dad comes home when I'm 7 years old. He's in the kitchen. He's talking to my mom. He's confused. He's depressed. He just got fired from his job, which may not be as big of a deal, except he was fired from his father, who was his boss, the family company business, which is deep issues there.
Yeah.
So right away, the family is split. There's tension of stress, money issues. My mom is upset. And, that was Christmas Eve. So Christmas Day wasn't all that great
Oh,
when we think about it. And then my dad was prescribed depression pills, and my mom had to get a job, which I don't think she was prepared for. There was a lot of, different role playing going on and dysfunction. And then he found another job. My mom was home. And when I was 8 years old, in the mornings when we were, I was getting ready for school, everybody else was gone. She'd come into my room and attack me from behind, almost choking me to death, screaming horrific things. And that's a life-changing moment, for a little girl. I was
yeah.
very sweet and shy, and I think mystical like yourself. We were talking about being born mystical and having to
Hmm.
hide it, repress it, nobody see it. Um, these are themes that I think are coming out right now in our time period because the Mother Earth is changing. And so I tip downstairs to get ready to leave, and I see her sitting at the kitchen table eating a birthday cake, which was common. So I learned we eat sugar. When you're
Uh-huh.
upset, eat sugar. So I became a sugar addict later on. And you go to school, you're confused. You think, is this a bad dream? What did I do wrong? How do I change this? What happened to mommy? All these questions. And next day it happens again. And then it happens again. And that Groundhog Day continued off and on for a year until I had severe brain damage. My autoimmune, my immune system was destroyed. I was in froze mode. I was the entertainer now. That's how the tap dancing and the showbiz came in because she loved the arts and it gave her attention and I was good at it. And so I trained hardcore, won lots of awards, but was completely broken inside, lost
Mhm.
my self identity. And I think in some ways, you understand, like with souls, well, we hide those spiritual gifts of a healer and the light because my soul was violated.
Mhm.
It's a serious violation. This isn't just a
Absolutely.
trauma wound of being, I mean, they're all wounds when you're hit and abused.
Yeah.
But there's different layers of chronic abuse, being a trauma expert coach now and how we heal that. Um, so I went to Point Park College for dance, went into New York City, and I lived right above a jazz club. And one day I saw Jimmy slide in these tap masters on a billboard. And I didn't watch television because my mom was obsessed with it.
Mm.
And I could hear the dialogue of the soap operas, and I would think that's not reality. I hope she realizes this is not how people behave. And part of that reality was you could get away with really improper abuse and then give somebody a physical gift to cover it up. I remember this sort of propaganda feeding her, like, and she did that, by the way. She copied what she saw on the screen. She would give me gifts after school, didn't talk about anything, didn't apologize, but it was just like, oh, here's a gift to cover up my violations to you. So I saw the power of television early on. And I think that's the wisdom of the child.
Mhm.
Um, but I saw these tap masters every now and then, these black men, and they were like huffing, creating music, jazz. And I was like fascinated because I was, as a dancer, I was a performer, but tapping was my specialty. It was my first voice. It was definitely a gift from the past lives. And so when I saw it, I was like, oh my God, I got to go. And I went the first night into the club, it was back in the 90s. I'm one of the only white women in the club. I'm sitting there in the back corner and I'm just watching hours and hours of incredible tap dancers. But I think Jimmy Slide was very mystical. And
Mhm.
if you think of yoga, if you think of energy, auric fields, one of the most powerful love fields. His smile just lit the whole entire room, his voice, ancient wisdom. And at the end of the night, I tried to duck out as fast as I could, but he grabbed me. He kind of jumped in front of me and he introduced himself. And I was very shy and intimidated by him. And I said, and it's honor to meet you. And when we shook hands, it was kind of like the Matrix. There was an
Mm.
activation. And he asked me if I was a tap dancer. And I kind of looked down at the floor. And then I looked up and said, yes. And he said, bring your tap shoes next time. And I did. And I thought, he'll ignore me. He won't call me up. He had no idea if I had any skills. And he did call me up. And that was another activation that started my professional tap dancing career. And really, he activated some soul database that I would learn in this time period right now about my maternal grandmother, because we never knew her mother and father. And I do have a strong feeling looking at her pictures, I never recognized that her skin was darker, that there was black in us, that there was a part of my generational bloodline trauma of mystery that I think Jimmy Slide was much more aware of who I was than I was myself.
Wow. I'm listening to that story and it brought tears to my eyes. I feel like there's something so powerful about what he saw in you. And he essentially, like, you attracted him, he attracted you in this quantum healing sort of way because he saw you when you
He
maybe didn't feel
did. And
seen.
he, because I go on in my books that are coming out this year, I go on to all these tribes and competition, and people are jealous of me and psychic attacking me and
Mhm.
sexual assault, all these different things with men. So I didn't know until now that he was showing me what a divine higher masculine is, first of
Mhm.
all, in the workplace. Okay. So that's a big issue. I'm sure you're aware of too. But
Mhm.
second of all, he allowed me to be fully me. Um, he nurtured my gifts, my turning abilities. He would ask me questions, but off stage, him and the other tap masters that I became family with, um, they were more interested in me, which was rare because my family didn't talk to me. They didn't ask me questions. There was no dialogue. It was just, I put on shows for you. You all think that you're great and I'm great. And we're telling the world that I'm great. But there's so much trauma and abuse behind closed doors, and nobody's really dealing with reality. We're all playing all these different roles that don't make any sense. You know what I mean? So it's
Yep.
so confusing. Life is confusing. And now I'm with this tap master off stage who's actually sharing and asking these intimate questions. And honestly, I don't even know how to answer them. But
Mhm.
somebody's finally recognizing me as a soul, not even as a tap dancer, not even as a woman, but actually as a soul. And that's why 30 years later, he's in my books. I channel him. He's a part of my angelic team with Mr. Rogers. I channel Mr. Rogers too. And they're working together because there's a lot we have to heal about the inner child that you mentioned before we got on this audio.
Yeah, absolutely. So how did you go from the stage then to doing the work that you're doing now? What was that transition like for you?
Okay, so there came a point in show business where I was fed up with the roles that I was being asked to play. There was only one lane for the white woman, 5'5". You know what I mean? Like
Uh-huh.
Broadway and theater can get very technical on the outside shell.
Okay.
So I started to write shows for women in the East Village. I started to work with all types of women, Asian, Black, and we would talk about eating disorders. We would talk about sexual assault. And I was actually the writer and director for some of that stuff. I wasn't actually on the stage, but I started doing one woman shows as well. So my last show before I left New York City was a one woman show. You would have liked this. Is actually, I should connect you to this person. Actually, I have to connect you to this person. So that's the magic of this
This is
show.
yes, this is the power of connections. I love this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they really value painters. and
Oh,
artists.
awesome.
So there's they have lots of theaters in New York, but they did a show where I was off 42nd Street in a window stage, projecting out where the audience, like everybody be walking all day long. And I do 15 minutes of tap dancing, a very specific sort of art form. And I had my poetry hanging. And I think one of the poems, I don't know if I can remember it, it's in my one book. I remember back when I was a kid, eating shame to hide my pain, repressing sex, holding on to clothes, afraid of spiders and open drawers. Locked inside, I could not find a peace of mind as to why I'm blind. Beyond the masks were a fragile girl, scared, confused, unable to be heard. Leaving home, running free, escaping blame, I found me, a ray of hope that holds on tight. When storms arrive, I continue to find the light. And that poem, the assistant director who I'll connect you with, he said that women, little girls would stare at the poem for 20, 30 minutes. You know, they just like read it.
Mm-hmm.
And I became known before I left New York as the blues tap dancer because at that point I was able to channel all emotions, which you know are important when you're healing your inner child. Sometimes we pretend to be happy all the time, or you know we are addicted to sugar that makes us then pretend to be happy. You know, when
Mm-hmm.
you detox sugar, it's like detoxing any drug. It's pretty hard, and I've done it. It's not easy because you have to feel pain, and it's hard to feel pain, and you have to be ready to feel pain. And maybe, you know, that's where the coaching comes in and the teacher and the expertise of how to feel the pain, get through it as quickly as you can
Mm-hmm.
while getting the psychological and spiritual lessons to develop you. So you can use that pain to develop you to your higher self, to more of a purpose instead of staying in that pain. So, when I left New York City, it was because I was starting to study meditations. And when I went, oh, connects to what we're going to share with the audience. When I went home to visit every now and then, of course, there were all these challenges. My father, a blue collar worker, you know, hurt his shoulder, and his physical therapist was studying Kundalini yoga. And my dad had this sort of personality that people loved, you know, he was just unique and funny. And he wanted to work with him to try to reverse his diabetes. And so he used him as a guinea pig. And my dad didn't tell anybody. Like this was not what men did in Pittsburgh. This was not popular back then. Nobody
Right.
heard the word yoga. So here he's breathing, chanting, you know, doing all this stuff. Barely even told my mom, but I came home and he said, let's go into the office. And I'm thinking he's going to tell me another traumatic story with the family. And he starts to teach me how to do breath work. And then he teaches my first meditation, which is my gift for your audience today, which opened the door. So when I went back to New York, I was doing that one meditation. I researched Kundalini yoga, which eventually led me to brain protocols that I specialized in. So I always share the story. My father abandoned me a lot. He neglected me. He just wasn't there. And I had severe father issues related to my dating. But when he passed in 2022, I realized he gave me all the toolkits and more when he died because I started channeling him to become a master, to really bring, I think, a blueprint of a trauma center or trauma where we're not working with one science, we're not working with two sciences, we're working with 8 to 10, and we're using them as a dance, like you do with your painting,
Mm-hmm.
to really get people not just healed but to a different avatar body. So my blood disorder is gone. So my bone structure in my ankles and feet and hips have changed from all the trauma shaking. My blood, so I look a lot younger at going to be 53 soon. I move actually, I'm more flexible with it, move better than I ever did in my dance career. So all these things took being a mad scientist in a sense, and I think being an artist, like being a dancer and training in theater, gave me the creativity to say, okay, this science I did for 2 years, but I didn't see the results I really needed to see. Let's throw it out. Even though I love certain sciences, I don't categorize them in healing physical or sexual abuse and we have to define what healing is. You know what I mean? And so,
Yeah.
and my goal is obviously for the youth, we don't want them to continue to have childbirth, birthing traumas of generational bloodline.
Right.
We want to really get new systems into place so that we can have people coming together, having higher conscious sex, having higher conscious lovemaking, understanding that what you were saying before we got on, that the child is seen as a gift. It's an angelic or however a soul, an energy that is so much wisdom,
A teacher,
a
really.
teacher. And you're exactly right. And this is something that I do when I'm working with a mother, a father, a family system as they're healing and things are happening when the dialogue is changing in the family. I always go back, your kids are your teachers. So if they're pushing your buttons, let's sit and let's really observe why.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
get back to Pittsburgh and of course, Pittsburgh wanted me back in show business. I went back into that. And then slowly I'd wake up at 3 a.m. It's a common theme, hear voices. And slowly it led me down the sciences I never thought I would be a private trauma coach. I never thought I would work in that industry. I think part of working in that industry was for me to heal my own trauma, though.
Yeah.
I mean, because I had a lot of medical people come to me with degrees, and I was definitely treated within my family at that time because I wasn't academically smart. I felt very less than, you know? And in the beginning in Pittsburgh, I felt judged because I didn't have the pieces of paper. Yet, when I look back at the results that my stroke clients and cancer clients and diabetes clients and got, well, I'm definitely a doctor. It may not be the definition of what you look at as a doctor, but
Hmm.
it's somebody that reversed these things. You know what I mean? And I don't claim healings. I understand the whole liability. It's a two-way street. My clients worked hard. They did their homework. They
Yeah.
weren't lazy. They invested financially out of pocket. They knew that this was like something that they had to heal on their spiritual contracts. They saw themselves more than just physical people, I think. You
Okay.
know what I
Yeah.
mean? You have to realize at some point, okay, I can sit here and think, okay, my mom almost choked me to death and now I have brain damage, or I can try to get out of this avatar body and move and create a new one. And my story at this moment is you can.
Oh man, Heather Ann, I would love to hear more about how you work with your clients to help them move out of those disease states into healthier bodies, minds, and spirits. Can you share more about that?
Sure. Well, there's not one size fits all,
Of course, yeah.
which is really the challenge, right? That's why I think it's hard for people to wrap their brains around me mastering 8 sciences. And I studied other ones because it's like I wasn't just a tap dancer. I was a jazz dancer, a ballet dancer. I was a singer. I acted. So I had what you would call a triple threat in show business. So these are creative art skill sets that if we kept in our school systems, our children would be able to learn different things and master them faster, just like art,
Hmm.
right? So I want to stress the connection between the arts and science or ancient sciences. A lot of the sciences I work with actually have PubMed research, but nobody's using them, at least
Can you?
not much in the United States. So I can go through so when somebody comes to me, I'm looking at their Indian, when they fill out their liability and health form, I'm looking at their Indian numerology chart. They don't even have to understand what that is, but I'm looking at numbers to understand weaknesses in their soul database, karma. Then I'm doing a neurological 4-step physical exercise with them that is similar to EMDR in the beginning, but not a huge fan of it for different reasons. I mean, it works for people with different specific things, but I think the brain protocols have a lot more, you can get a lot more for your buck, I guess, if you learn them. So I'm always looking at that sort of thing too. Um, so when I start seeing, okay, do they have brain damage? Just because somebody has diabetes two people can have diabetes and completely different reasons why they have it. You know
Uh-huh.
what I mean? Because they come from two different environments. They come from maybe a different past life soul database. They may have karma that they're cleaning up. Your disease may be connected to your karma, or it could be connected to violations. So it's not, it's just there's a lot, and usually it takes, two or three sessions before I start to get the piece of the puzzle and go, oh, they need this brain protocol, or oh, they need that brain protocol to start to customize. I stopped doing 1 hour sessions a week, probably about 7 years ago, because there was just too much to do. So a lot of the clients that I work with, it ends up being 3 or 4 hours a week on Zoom, and then they fly in to Pittsburgh and they'll do from 4 days to 8 days of intensive, like 7 hours a day with me. And we're just doing all kinds of stuff to get things out so that we can then give them a toolkit for home that they can continue. Because one of the things I do while I'm healing somebody is I'm teaching them to be their own healer. So they have a
Mm-hmm.
toolkit. Like I'll give you an example, the C-PTSD brain protocol, which is 8 meditations. Um, it's great for anxiety. It's great for all these other things to relax the central nervous system. It's also great to train. It's a training tool. If you think of martial arts, you have to sit with your feet parallel. You have to learn your breath patterns. You have to learn your sounds. Why is my throat acting up on this particular chant? Why is you start to study yourself? It's not someone else putting you under a hypnosis. It's you putting yourself under hypnosis. So you
Okay.
are in the driver's seat as opposed to giving your power up to somebody else, having been a victim of somebody who is very much a martyr, a dictator, having seen sexual assault and so many sort of issues where somebody was the controller or ruler, the boss or the yogi. We have to get to a place where we're empowering people with tools that allow them to be training themselves to be their own master, instead of saying, like, I'm a great energy healer. I could pull out entities and all that all day. But if you go home to the narcissist and you're eating Dunkin' Donuts, you're
Right.
wasting both of our time at this point.
Right.
And I think in this time and age, we need advancement. That's the type of sort of healer. So I'm not everybody's teacher. I'm really for the person that is ready, who's going to be triggered, who's going to have to do homework,
Mm-hmm.
but really wants to upgrade their life. And they will. I mean, they will, whether it's love, family, health, but I can't say it's going to be easy. I
Right.
can't say it's going to be comfortable. There's nothing comfortable about healing wounds or healing childhood trauma or healing generational bloodline trauma. But I think we've all come to this time period to do that, because we're in a game-changing moment here on
Mm-hmm.
Mother Earth. And I think you and I, our generation's kind of like, we've got to make these changes so the next generation can come in and be what we wanted to be, you and I. We wanted to be free.
Right.
We wanted to play. And we wanted to be able to say, you know what, there's a mystical angel in the corner and not somebody make fun of us. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like that's why Mr. Rogers hit. Mr. Rogers, believe it or not, did a lot of miracle healings. There's books out now of people who worked with him. He never promoted it. He was very cautious and protected his temple. And he wasn't into the whole showbiz television thing, even though he became an icon. He did a lot of miracle healings in hospitals and with children that nobody knew about.
Wow. My goodness.
Yeah.
I have so many questions for you.
Everybody says that. They're like, I have to have you back. I'm like,
I'm like,
please.
wait, wait. I want to talk about, if it's okay, can you talk about the eight ancient sciences? And I feel like you've already gone over some of them, but can you take us through what
Yeah, I'll
they
go through
are?
some. Yeah,
Yeah, and how you use them. I'm so fascinated by this. I I was looking at your site and I was looking at your socials, and I feel like there's so much in your story that is really, it's so hard to put what you do on a business card. It's so
it
hard to put
is.
it on your website.
Yeah.
I feel like what I'm hearing from you now is so much more, I'm going to use the word intensive than your site conveys. Not in a
Yes.
bad way, but just in a,
No.
oh, holy shit, you really do
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah.
Um,
I get
I,
that comment with every guesting, and it's a compliment, and it's also like it's also within networking or business. I can't label myself one thing. It won't make sense. And I think
yep.
that's why the book series that's going to come out this year is really important. I've won two in book series, but so the first thing, and there's all you would really appreciate that from what you shared before this talk. There's a lot of spirituality, mystical stuff that's in book 1 to 2. Um, is water education. So about 15 years ago, water education came in, not through the normal thing. Uh, eh, you know, it would take too long to share all these stories. There's so
Yeah.
many of them. But I have a free e-water book, and it's mostly based on sciences. But that started me out as a dancer in our education of dance education. We had no water education. What I started to learn with doctors and scientists that were my clients, they had really no education on water, pH, ORP, how to test water. What I learned from plumbers who came to me, they had no education on water filter, what filters to look for, what qualifications to look for. So I became what a lot of people, when they start to interview me just on water, the Aaron Brockovich healer,
Uh-huh.
both from a legal point of view as well as a healing point of view. But the thing is I started drinking a Japanese medical device, which has 7 different waters, and they've been using it in their hospitals for 65 years, tons of clinical research. And they use these different waters to heal the body as naturally as possible, which is what I started to teach my clients with diabetes and cancers, as well as skin issues, as well anything you're over medicated, as well as the brain. So when you see the pictures on my website, my face has changed a lot. My
Mm-hmm.
brain, I can read, a book a day. I couldn't read when I started out. I had severe brain damage. So it's things like that. When people say I can't read much or I can't write, I'm like, well, if you want an avatar that can, we can heal that. So water education became huge. The United States is challenged right now because of the plastic and because of the forever chemicals. So we want to find a filter that takes out forever chemicals with clean water. And I work for a company that I talk about in my ebook, and people can ask me questions. So I always say you want clean water to absorb your vitamins and supplements. But then I work with a medical grade water. And then I teach mothers and business owners and doctors how to use that. And I have doctors on my team. So it's been fascinating. We have a lot of interesting stories. But, anybody is listening to this, in the United States, we've had a war on health.
Mm-hmm.
We are the sickest in mental health and in health. And that's just the facts. And so I always challenge people, how are things working out? So I've gone into companies that had to, get rid of $10,000 worth of water filtrations after they reviewed everything because they realized that, we don't really want to drink dead water on a regular basis. It's not good for absorption. A lot of people have gut issues, which you're going to do if you have trauma. So I had I had fat in my belly growing in my 40s. And I was like, what's going on here? I never had fat before. Glyphosate, so that's the first tool. And actually, I use a lot of those waters. So when you're shaking out involuntary trauma, that's another tool. Teaching people how to allow their bodies, when they start to feel pain, involuntary shake. And that shaking opens up the meridians opens up the doors in your brain. You're crying, you're feeling, you're understanding stories that either are yours or your mom's or dad's, or your
Mm-hmm.
grandma's or your grandpa's, which goes deep. I've noticed when people are on the Japanese medical grade water, they cry more and release faster and heal faster. And for me personally, I was so frozen. I never cried before until I started drinking the water because I wasn't allowed to cry. My mom would make fun of me growing up. So crying was not allowed. And I find that a lot of people in my practice, when they start crying a lot, they apologize.
Mm-hmm.
Men and women, they
Yeah.
feel shame as if they shouldn't be crying as much. And I'm saying, well, what are you going to do with that pain then? It becomes cancers, it becomes fat, it becomes tightness. My body became a straitjacket. I couldn't walk for years, so I went from professional dancer to I can't walk to now I'm like more mobile than I've ever been in my life. So I really do understand how this all works. But so water, somatic energy, shaking, which I would say I have more of than the Peter Levine, like higher advanced. A lot of women have a lot of shaking to do. I can say
Mm-hmm.
that. Brain protocols, which have PubMed, which I'm very passionate about. So I specialize in C-PTSD, OCD, and childhood trauma brain protocols. These are medical meditation systems where you're learning different mudras, different breath patterns, different chanting. And recently I've been doing ADHD actually, which has healed the root, like the finish end of my journey, which I'm assuming my dad had. I had never worked with ADHD, but I would like to partner up with a actual male leader because I'm seeing statistically children having a lot of that and men having a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking it would be a good practice to have a male leader. So I'm sending that message out there. If you're listening to this and you're interested and you're in the health field or the mental health field, let's have a conversation about what that looks like. Because I was shocked that I had some trouble. I mean, it helped me pretty quickly because I had done a lot of brain work. Um, so we're talking that. We're talking herbs, detoxing
Mm-hmm.
glyphosate, superfoods. So I don't eat a lot from the grocery store. I order, and I look at a third party testing company called the Detox Project. The Detox Project, a company pays money to make sure their product doesn't have glyphosate. Glyphosate is a very big issue in the United States, unfortunately. That's why we have so much cancer and so much belly fat, unfortunately. And that's why when you go to Italy or other parts of the world and you can eat all this food, you don't feel like you gain 10 pounds
Yeah.
and you feel like you're not going to fall asleep because we don't have toxic poisons killing us. I mean,
Oh my.
so the detox project, you can look at the list of companies and products. Now, there isn't a whole lot of food options yet, but it's growing. And I think it's going to continue to grow specifically with what's happening right now in that lane. So I had to cut out a lot of food. Um, and honestly, I don't feel deprived. It took a while. I feel because I'm so healthy, I have so much energy. Like it's just a gift for me. When you've been sick for as long, I was sick for many years. It's like you'll do anything to feel great.
Mm-hmm.
People think I'm half my age and it's awesome. Not because I want to look half my age. I feel actually half my age, and I want to be a testimony to that. But I also want to be a testimony to the leaders. Let's create foods that aren't poisoning us. Let's get this water thing. Why I have the best water filters, but when I go to the airport, I don't have any options really.
Mm-hmm.
If I know that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's problems here when I go to travel. Why don't we're talking about restaurants. We're talking about, this gets bigger than just your household, but I teach my clients, my private clients you're basically building a healing center in your house,
Mm-hmm.
getting the water systems, so when PTSD brain protocol, when a client is in a car accident, which I've had many of them, they're like, I'm feeling so much anxiety and trauma. I need to come to you. I said, no, you don't. Pull out the PTSD protocol. Do it right now. 2 days later, 80% of the trauma is out of their body because they know how to shake the trauma out. Then they may need one more tool. That's what I'm saying about having a toolkit and teaching your kids how to use that toolkit. So
Hmm.
we're passing this down generation to generation. Trying to think what other tools. It's a lot.
I know you went through a lot. I feel like you did 6 or 7.
That's my story. I've gone through a lot of dark nights of the souls and a lot
Yeah.
of things against me. But I think my testimony is I never gave up on myself. And honestly, the odds were against me. I had a lot of people who stabbed me in the back, who abandoned me, who never showed up. I mean, I get it. And so if you're feeling like you're that person, wow, follow me, get on my book list. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Start learning these sciences because they're doable and you can change your life. It's not just a slogan. I know to some people it might sound like a slogan. I get it. But, and I'm not going to say it's easy because it wasn't easy for me.
Yeah.
It definitely wasn't. But yeah, just definitely we'll sit and talk about it once you do your homework. You can ask me questions and say, why did, what's this? And that's what the consultation is about. It's about figuring out what works for you and what's cost effective.
Hmm. And so when you work in your private coaching with your private coaching clients, it sounds like you're utilizing your spiritual gifts just as much as your
Physical.
physical understanding
Yeah.
of science there.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I feel like I could talk to you for another couple hours, so I'll definitely have to have you back on the show. But can you tell
I would
us?
love that.
Yeah, I would love that too. For those who've been listening who are saying, I would really love to work with you, where can they find you and how can they start to work with you?
So they can find me definitely on my website, which is my name, www.heatherannferri. So heatherannferry.com. But if they email me, I can send them a free gift from your channel, a meditation, the first meditation my father taught me. And they will get a private link to that meditation, and that's a good starter for them to have an introduction to go on the website, download if they're interested in the water ebook, get
Hmm.
the free meditation. And then we set up a Zoom and we figure out, okay, I usually do a few sessions and then we decide whether we're going to work. And then I do a package because the package allows me to commit to your energy for a time period to give you a customized toolkit. I can only work with so many energies per month. So
I loved that conversation with Heather Ann, and if you enjoyed it too, I hope that you give her a follow and check out her meditation. And if you're feeling inspired by what you heard today and want to bring more of this healing energy into your own life, I'd love for you to check out my color healing kit, a beautiful creative way to start connecting with your intuition and exploring the messages your soul is sending to you through color. You can find the link in the show notes. And if you're on Instagram, come follow along with me at Heather Eck Artist. I share daily insights, behind the scenes peeks into my art and sessions, and simple practices to help you stay grounded and inspired. I'd love to connect with you there. Just send me a DM. I always love to say hi. Thanks for listening.
I have to be very particular. But I do like 3 sessions just to do that dance to make sure we're a fit. Because I'll be honest with you, I love to see results just as much as you want to see results. And now I've got to see if you're going to do homework. So if you're not going to do anything, it ain't going to work. I mean, I'm just going to be
Yes.
frank. The
Hmm.
email that you want to go to for the free video is you matter. So YOUMATTER 108 at gmail.com.
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. I hope that you give Heather Ann a follow and get her free meditation. And if you're feeling inspired by what you heard and want to bring more of this healing energy into your own life, I'd love for you to check out my color healing kit, which is a beautiful creative way to start connecting with your intuition and exploring the messages your soul is sending through color. You can find the link in the show notes. And if you're on Instagram, come say hi over at Heather Eck Artist, where I share daily insights, behind the scenes peeks into my art and work sessions, and simple practices to help you stay grounded and inspired. I'd love to connect with you there. Thanks for listening. Thank you for joining me today on Your Radiant Spirit. Every conversation here is an invitation to go beyond the surface, to listen to what your soul has been whispering, and to step into the life you've been longing for. If you're ready to go deeper, to work in a way that's personal, creative, and profoundly transformative, you'll find ways to connect with me in the show notes. Whether it's through art, a guided session, or a fully immersive journey, you'll discover a space where your truth is seen and your next chapter begins. If this episode spoke to you, it would mean the world if you shared it with a friend, left a review, or subscribed so more people can discover the conversations we have here. Until next time, my friend, keep noticing the colors, the moments, and the nudges. They're all leading you home. And for now, take a breath, hold on to what resonated, and carry it with you into the rest of your day. Thanks for listening.